Welcome to the Coffee with Counsel podcast with your host, Grace St. Clair. In each episode, we'll have guests such as real estate brokers, financial advisors, accountants, and attorneys who will share their expertise and real stories of how people get in and out of a mess in a variety of circumstances. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and on our website, qualityestateplanning.com. Now, here's the host of Coffee with Counsel, Grace St. Clair.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited to have this podcast. I have a great guest today, but also just a little bit about what I've been doing this week. Yesterday, I went to a senior health fair, and it was so beautiful up there in Palos Verdes. It was a gorgeous day, sunny as ever. And I met some of the nicest people. It's a wonderful place up there, PV Shores, if you ever get a chance to go there. I would move in tomorrow, but I'm still a little bit too invested in redoing my house, so I have to wait. But anyway, the senior health fair, I met so many people that still have not planned their estates. They all mentioned that, oh yes, I've been thinking about doing that, and I've been just procrastinating, talking to my husband, whatever. It's still so common, and I must tell you guys, you got to get that done. If you want to live your life in peace and happiness, it's for sure something that you want to get done. So a little bit about what I do. I work with families and small businesses to help plan their estates to avoid family arguments, first thing that happens, and then unnecessary governmental interference. And the governmental interference is probate and courts and judges and people that want to tell you what to do with your own assets, which is never fun. I like to say, remember, it's never too early to plan your estate if you want to keep the state out of your business. And I created that tagline because it's all about the state. It is your personal business state. That's your family state, whatever you have in mind for your family, but also your business. Your business is also a state. I mean, you also want to keep your business out of the state purview. And it can be an actual service business. It can be a rental property with family. A lot of people have that. It can be a brick and mortar business. Maybe you have a Hallmark store or something like that. You can have a digital business. A lot of people are doing recommendations, advertising at home. We're all working at home. A lot of people are still working at home now. But if it doesn't have a W-2 related to it, and you're relying on that income, it's a business, and you need to also plan that with your estate. It's understandable that we often don't think of those businesses as like an IBM that requires planning, but really, if you're relying on that income, you definitely need to have that planned. That is something that we spend a lot of time working with here at St. Clair Law because I think it's extremely important. I see it way too often where someone passes and they don't have any right to the business activity, or the husband had basically an advertising business, or I think import-export's one of my favorites. He dies and they have nothing in writing, no contracts, nothing, and the wife is now penniless. You just can't do that. So anyway, who we serve as people are basically our service works for everyone, but we do specialize in families and small businesses. We like working with businesses because they're so important to our society, and also people need to know how to plan those as well. We represent the grantors of trust. The grantors are the ones that the ones that create the trust and make the decisions for the assets. We also represent the successor trustees if the grantor does pass. And then finally, if a mistake occurs, usually it's not our clients, but we often get clients that haven't planned their estate or something happened and it wasn't correct. And that's when they went through probate. So we represent those executors. That's how I got in the business, because my father went through a probate that he shouldn't have had to have gone through. Basically, I had heard when I was growing up that they had a trust, that everything was in place. But when my grandmother died, my dad could not find the trust in any of the documents in the house. This is another problem I'll talk with in a minute with my guests. But anyway, so we couldn't find the document, and it wasn't in the county recorder's office. It was in the assessor's office, but that's not the critical office. They had the Breer Family Trust, which is Breer. My dad's last name was Greer, Greer. You can imagine how a G can sometimes look like a B. but for some reason the documents weren't there. We weren't in the recorder's office. The trust failed, I guess, by ineffectiveness, and so he had to go through probate. A single man, well, I'm sorry, single beneficiary. He was married to my mom, but no one was complaining. He's the only child, and it took him 2 years and $26,000 to get that property out of probate. Just a simple bank account and a small home in Ventura. So it can happen to anyone. It happened to my dad, and we don't want it to happen to you. So that's why we help people plan their estates to avoid these problems when they occur. So a little bit now more about my guest today. We're going to be talking about assisted living, and places like that. Jennifer Weintraub is someone that I know. We have met with our senior specialist group, which is how we met in the first place. The senior specialist group is, we're part of the Foundation for Senior Services. This is going to be a mouthful, so be prepared. Foundation is kind of like the Alzheimer's group, where everyone knows about Alzheimer's, but this is like a seniors clearinghouse for anything related to seniors. And Jennifer is one of our members of our group that we started a long time ago, and as am I. And we meet each other once a month to discuss things and have speeches and everything. But we also, seniors, we do a lot of educational programs. So Jennifer did an excellent educational program at one of our meetings, which I loved, and I invited her to join us today because there's so many things she had to offer. So welcome, Jennifer Weintraub.
Hi, Grace. Thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate it. And I value your friendship and your partnership, and obviously everybody as part of our SSG group too, our senior specialist group. It's a great community where a lot of people can share referrals, share advice. We can go to each other, and we feel confident that we're, referring very, very honest, the best in the field to our clients and friends and family.
Right. And we have been I can't remember when we started, but I started the group. Actually, it was started at my office, and I was voluntold, I think Jill explained, voluntold to get involved when one of the other estate planning attorneys moved on to San Francisco. And then we ran it in the basement of the Beach Cities Health District for a while, which was tough. But then when COVID hit, we had to run it from my office on Zoom, and we couldn't help the seniors as much as we wanted to. So we sent them a lot of letters and tried to send them cupcakes and things, but it wasn't as easy to do during those years when they kept us away from our seniors. But many seniors have issues. So the senior specialist group is a group of seniors who specialize in that in various industries that help seniors. And we are in this group as a so this is the senior specialist group is a clearinghouse to get you in touch with the people that you need to know in these areas. So Jennifer, list a couple of people in our group, the industries that we have.
We've got geriatric care managers, we've got fiduciaries, we've got, estate planning attorneys, we have home care, we have home health care, we've got hospice, public, mobile notaries, all things that can help seniors in some aspect and make their lives easier and help them along the way.
Yeah, we definitely need some tech people. So if you're a tech person, you want to help us, we need you. Come on down. Call us. Because there's so many tech issues that seniors need. But anyway, if you are a senior and you need more information, go to the foundationforseniorservices.org, and a senior specialist in your area will be able to reach you. There is a phone number also on the website. And then we'll be able to speak with you and talk to you about what your needs might be, or you can attend one of our classes. There's an event calendar on the page of the website. Please show up to anything on there. We'd love to see you. In our neighborhood, we're in the South Bay. So a little bit more about Jennifer's business, which is part of our group. She works with the assisted living industry. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your company and what you do, Jennifer?
Sure. I am a senior living advisor and owner of assisted living locators of Torrance and the surrounding areas, which means I have a particular territory that I service. I know that territory inside and out. So when it comes to helping families find outstanding senior living options, I'm their go-to. I can make sure that they have all the care needs covered. We talk about the budget. We talk about what, where ideally they'd love their, family member to live, what kind of care they need. That's probably the most important thing. And then also the time frame. When are you looking? Sometimes it's great to come just understand what's out there before there's a crisis. Unfortunately, sometimes there's a crisis, but that's also why I'm here, because I do have relationships with all the big communities. And then we also have smaller 6 people homes called RCFEs or boarding cares. And those are great for maybe more hands-on, higher care needs or lower budgets and personality.
Right. So you help people find the place that they want to go to.
Yes.
Okay. So one of the biggest problems we see is, so we work very well under the stress of a crisis, but because we do it all the time. So it's not a crisis to us as much as it is to you. But for those of you who are listening, definitely it's so much better to do things in advance. Now, is that easy to do? Not necessarily, because your family members don't always want to face the issue that they're realizing that they have. So that's why we always bring Jill Love in and talk about your geriatric care management needs first. But if you don't do that and you're in a crisis, Jennifer can help you find the place that you need. So give us an idea, Jennifer, of the types of places. You kind of mentioned the names, but let's go over the types of places that are available.
There's a whole slew. And just to mention, my services are free to families. So we take out the whole financial part of it. So they don't have to worry about that because they're already under a lot of stress. And we don't want to burden them with the financial aspect too, because, it should be off the table for them because they're trying to find the best care. So if there isn't a crisis and somebody just wants to, no longer take care of a house, wants to be around other people, wants 3 meals a day, snacks, entertainment, there's independent living. They might not have any care needs, but they're just done taking care of a house and all the expenses and work that goes along with it. So there's independent living. Well, there's also, if they want to stay in their house, they can have services come to them and they can age in place. So that's always an option. And then there's also 55 plus senior communities where they're surrounded by, other people their age with common interests, and, they can age and have this community. And there's a lot to be said about community, especially as we age. So that's independent living. Assisted living is when they help you with activities of daily living. You may need help bathing. You may need help walking. You may need help transferring. Maybe you even need higher levels of care, but it's a community, either in a bigger community where they, there's a lot of activities. They usually have like a whole month of activities planned. And that's the goal, is to have everybody out and outside their rooms, but also getting the care that they need. And then there's memory care. So sometimes people may start in assisted living and then start to see cognitive decline, and they may need memory care. There's different levels of memory care. If you enter early, there's also programs that can help slow the progress. There's no cure, but there's definitely programs in a lot of these communities that can help slow the progress. And it's usually higher care needs. But there's also boarding cares, or those small 6 people homes that are dementia certified and are very apt at taking care of people. So again, it just depends on the person, the best fit, and where they're going to be most comfortable.
Yeah.
And then there's also
nursing homes. Go ahead.
Nursing homes are just the difference between nursing homes and assisted living. Nursing homes are usually for more higher level care and needing more skilled care and medical care. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So 24 hours. So I worked on my parents for 10 years before we finally got them to do something. So I know what it's like to deal with your family. It's very difficult. But I could see that my dad was having more difficulties than my mom. And I kept working on them. My dad loved woodworking, and he had 4 large saws. I can't even remember. This is so bad. I don't know the radial saw, the thing that you slide back and forth. And he was working on those every day. And we were like, I don't know if Dad should be doing that anymore. And my mom's like, no, but you can't stop him. He does what he wants to do. Men, that's how you are. Trust me. Try not to be that way, but that's we're never going to start that. That's another podcast altogether.
That's another podcast.
Right. So, but anyway, so 10 years we kept talking about it, thinking about it. They needed to lower their expenses instead of increase their expenses. My dad was like, well, let's get a first, because they had 2-story house, 5 bedrooms, the same house I grew up in high school. And they just shut the doors and closed down 3 rooms to try to avoid the cost of heating and cooling those rooms, which didn't work, of course. They were spending like $6,000 a month on heating and air kinds of things. I don't know if you guys understand that out there, but they wanted a certain heat, they wanted a certain coolness, and it was hot out there, so that they did that. So I just thought that was so expensive, but that's my perception, wasn't their perception. So it's up to them to decide that. But finally, my dad had knee replacement surgery, and he needed to change his lifestyle a tad. And of course, he was also suffering from, I think dementia happened shortly after that. But anyway, as part of the process, we had to look in our neighborhood to find places that were good for them. So because I'm also good with money and I work with financial advisors and myself as an advisor, I'm aware of these things. So I talked to them about getting a 1st-story home. Like, we just went with that first. If it's a single-story home, it was because of the prices. We bought that house when I was 12. So they spent like $42,000 on their house. The next house was going to be $750,000 at the minimum. That was like 10 years ago. So that wasn't going to save them any money. And it wasn't going to work either, because they were still going to be in the same thing, only more expensive property taxes, because then we didn't have Prop 19. Not that that would have worked, but still, it wasn't going to work. So then we went and looked around the neighborhood for assisted living facilities, and they were very expensive. And my mom and I went. My dad would do whatever we told him to do, but we were not as comfortable with that for my dad's sake. We thought it'd be great for him. He would be happy. All he likes to do is eat and talk. But we just felt like it wasn't enough for him to be able to do. I don't know. It just wasn't quite right. And then as he started to get a little bit more feeble with his memory issues, he ended up going into the hospital with a seizure, and we had to put him somewhere. So we were in a crisis. There we were, running around town trying to pick the best place, my mom and I. And we ended up getting, even though we picked the best place, the place that volunteered to take him, because everyone else was full, was the worst place. And it just so happens that many years ago, I used to work with my mom in the pharmacy as a pharmacy tech before that was a job. And I knew this convalescent home because I used to hate delivering the drugs over there, because it just seemed so sad and disheartening every time I went. But they were so wonderful for my dad. They put him in front of the nurse's station because he liked to take care of everybody. He's a very kind gentleman. And he knew all the women when they showed up by themselves, and he became their pal, took care of everybody. But or they kept him at the nursing station to watch him because he was a problem. Not really sure how that happened, but they did take very good care of him. So I must thank them for that. But after that, it was another story. Like, when he got to the point where he was kicked out of that place because he wasn't progressing, we had to find another place. And so we ended up finding a home care, a board and care place that did dementia care, and they were also very good. So those options are out there. Yeah, you're familiar with a lot of board and cares in our neighborhood as well.
Oh, yes. And my territory starts up in El Segundo, goes all the way through the beach cities, Torrance, up to PV, 27 zip codes. And I have canvassed them, met with people. I toured every single one. I would never bring somebody to a home I've never been to, or cross-referenced against the state sites to make sure there's no violations. So that's also a really good reason to use someone like me. So I've cross-referenced everything and made sure it's safe and there's no violations or issues.
Yeah. So we went to so many places, my mom and I, of course was going to take my mom everywhere she wanted to go because I'm crazy and I'm an attorney and that's what I do. But if it's you and you're listening, you want to trust Jennifer, because she definitely will pare down the 1,500 places that you might be able to go, choose the right area, and then show you 6 that you could choose from instead of 17. That was kind of like what we did. We went all over town. looking to make sure we had the right place. And it turns out that we picked a perfect place for my dad. So he lasted for like 6 months there, and then he passed. Dementia is a terrible disease. As it gets really towards the end, there's just, you're just waiting it out mostly, which is very sad. But anyway, let's move on to what other benefits are there for seniors living in an assisted living community instead of a home?
Yes. Well, just going back to the costs of running a home, oftentimes we tell people sometimes they don't realize what the costs are involved with senior living or assisted living or any kind of boarding care. But when you actually tally up the mortgage or the taxes or the gas and electric and water and trash and all the things, sometimes the costs are not that far off. And then you get a lot more at these communities. So for instance, with assisted living, you get professional help that's always there watching out for you, making sure that, if you need medication, you're getting the medication, you're getting outside your room, you're getting exercise, you're getting social interaction. And we can touch on that later. And just more one-on-one attention. I know some people, I meet families that decide, they think that keeping their loved one at home is the best option. And maybe it is, but if that person's sitting on the couch alone all day, not getting, activity and using their brain or using their body, they will deteriorate. So sometimes that is not the best option. So we try to tell them, as hard as it is, and there's also a lot of guilt involved, I understand. So we try to show them the benefits of, and also there's a lot of stress on caregivers who are, brunt of the work falls on them. And, also just knowing that their state and local agencies, they're all, have to be compliant. So, that they're in a safe environment. They get 3 delicious meals a day, snacks all day, hydration, happy hours, and live entertainment. I mean, and those are really the bigger communities that can offer that. And then sometimes they have PT and OT and speech therapy that come to them. They have a gym where they can have therapists come and work with the residents. There's housekeeping, laundry. You don't have to worry about anything. Outings and excursions. So those are the bigger communities. But again, the smaller homes will do activities on a daily basis. They'll make sure, like right after breakfast, there's chair yoga or some kind of walk or whatever it may be to keep them physically active. And then their activities through the day. And again, home cooked meals. And they make sure that they get well-balanced, nutritious diet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, what about the places that have like all of these things in the same area? So you can move into like a condo, live there. Then as you get more feeble, maybe your spouse goes into the nursing home, and then maybe there's something else there.
It's called a CCRC. So it's like a continuum care place where you can live from start to finish. So you could even start in independent and then move to assisted. And then maybe you start, even there are wonderful programs in some of the communities around us that have these kind of transitional programs where they may not be fully ready for memory care, but they're showing signs of cognitive decline, early signs of dementia. So they can live in the assisted living, go to meals and whatever activities they want to do in assisted. But then there's also more focused activities that are better suited for them. They're more directed. They have maybe a slower pace. So they don't get frustrated with assisted living and feeling like, I can't keep up. I don't know what they're asking. And it's really great. And again, a lot of these programs are designed for mental, the activity to slow the dementia.
Mm-hmm. I know we have a couple places in our neighborhood where my clients have lived, and they were able to have a caregiver come in for that particular family member who needed more care.
Yes.
And they could still live in the facility there. Also, so I've had 2 experiences with this. One of my clients kept their dad in their home, and because he wanted to stay in his home, and it was awful. The 2 of them, I swear, when I saw them the next time, I thought they'd aged 10 years. It was so difficult. One of them watched the movie at night because they had cameras in the house to watch over dad. And one of the night nurses, or what do they use? Not nurses. They use, what do they call them? LVNs? No.
Home care. They
Home
usually use
care
home care,
person,
home
yeah.
health. Home
Not a
health.
nurse. She was not a nurse. And she fell asleep on him every night. And of course, he wasn't doing anything because he was sleeping, but I totally understand why they were upset. But one of them would stay up and watch the movie, whatever they were watching, and the other one would sleep, and then vice versa. So it aged them significantly, keeping him in that house because they didn't
Yeah.
live with him.
Yeah.
Then he kept going into the hospital because his care wasn't quite right. They were feeding him and entertaining him during the day, but they weren't watching some of his other health issues that he had. And the nurse didn't come as often as she should have come. That's another thing. When you're aging in place in home, a nurse does come once a month usually, but you have to make sure they come. So that was something that I kept telling them, leave him in the hospital until he gets through I think 6 weeks, is it? Or maybe it's more than that. 180 days. They have 180 days that Medicare will pay for. And they kept moving him out as soon as they could, and he was not getting any better. And he eventually passed away based on a problem with his gallbladder, which
Yeah.
shouldn't kill you, first of all.
Right.
But anyway, it was an awful experience watching that. And then I had another client who was actually with her husband. He was in his 90s, but as sharp as a tack, but his body was falling apart. And she was fine. So they had a caregiver coming in, $5,000 a month just to take care of him in their facility that they were living in. So they had enough room for that, but it was expensive, now double the price. And the kids wanted to keep both houses. Each one had their own house from a prior marriage. So I said, you should get divorced because it would be better for you financially. And of course,
Right.
they didn't want to do that. But I mean, you go over all the options. That's what we do, is try to help people solve their problems. And sometimes it does take a village to make that happen. So Jennifer's one of my villages. She's one of the people that I can rely on to help someone find the right place for their family. And that's what's important. The only thing also, though, I know no one ever wants to move. And change is very difficult when you're an elderly person, isn't it?
Yes. And that's why also I spend so much time and making sure that we find the perfect best fit, because you don't want to have to move someone again. It's already difficult to make the initial transition, but then to move again is really detrimental. So
Yeah.
you try to
So
just
especially you find the right place. That's why it's important to go see 17 places. But Jennifer does the 17, you get the 6.
Yeah.
She can pare it down for you. So anyway, I must say, so when we went and found our place for my mom and dad, in their neighborhood, there was 3 55 plus communities that we could go to. And one of the ones was way up on a very high hill, beautiful place, but it was so hilly, he was going to have to drive a golf cart everywhere, which seemed fun to me. But my mom and I were worried about him falling out of the golf cart. He was already had a knee replacement. I didn't think that was the best thing for him. But we ran into this woman and we asked her how she liked living there. And she said she lived there with her husband for 20 years and they loved it. And then he recently passed away. It wasn't so recent, actually, after she mentioned it. We were surprised. But she said she's still enjoying living there. She looked like she was 65. And then we asked her how old she was, and she told us she was 95. So she
Whoa.
lived there for 30 years. And she said, I wish we would have done it sooner. And they went in there 30 years before 95. So that was like 60s, at least 65. I was so shocked because she did not look a day over 65. She was definitely vibrant and she walked all over the place there. We asked her about the hills and my dad. That's what our big question was. And there was another place that we loved. It was beautiful and it had a lot of trickling creeks. And my parents live in Thousand Oaks, so that's one of the beautiful things about the space out there.
Mhm.
But I was so worried that because my mom would still do relief work on the side. She's a pharmacist. And I was afraid if one day she took a job that my dad would go out in the, looking around in the yard and go in the creeks and then get stuck somewhere and we would never know where he was. So we were a little bit concerned about that location. And we ended up going to just a plain, straight place without a lot of accoutrements, which is, I wish they had more there. But again, everyone you talk to when you go to these places, even yesterday, everyone I spoke to, I wish I would have come here sooner. So they always feel that way. One of my friends that was there also as an exhibitor told me that she just moved her mother and father into that unit up there.
Mhm.
And she said, I can't believe we should have done this so much sooner. And now her dad loves the place. He's going everywhere. He's around people. People, our parents think they want to live in their house. They don't realize how lonely it is when they're alone all the time. I know my mom's 94. She is constantly telling me in a jokey form that she wishes she had more interaction with people, even though she has tons of things that she does. But it's hard to sit there at 3 p.m. and wait until dinner by yourself. And there's nothing on TV. So she does read, but sometimes she gets a little tired of doing her projects. But anyway, I hear it all the time from my mom too. She does live alone. It's hard to live alone. So tell us a little bit about your loneliness presentation that you gave
Yeah.
us. It was
So
so good.
yeah. So again, we try to tell people, it may not be the best thing to keep them at home because of the studies, just the effects of loneliness and social isolation on people's health. Statistically, there are numbers, put to it, studies that have shown that their effects on, there's a higher risk of health problems such as heart disease, actually 29% greater chance of heart disease due to loneliness and social isolation. It's so hard for me to say that. I don't know. Like depression and even cognitive decline, the chances of dementia are increased by 50%. Again, because you're not interacting, you're not,
Right.
using your brain like you would when you have a conversation or doing an activity. Adults who are lonely and socially isolated are less healthy, have longer hospital stays. They're usually admitted to the hospital more often, likely to die earlier, and really they're lacking meaningful and supportive relationships. So besides the dementia, heart disease, and stroke, there's also studies about type 2 diabetes, because maybe they're not getting the correct diet, depression, anxiety, and I think that happened a lot over COVID, especially when people were isolated even more.
Mm-hmm.
Addiction, and just earlier death. And then there's there's a statistic that says nearly 1 in 4 adults age 65 and older are socially isolated. So it's really important to be, either if they're not in a community, maybe they're still, vibrant and they're living at home, then go join a senior group. Go,
Yeah.
pick up a hobby. Make sure you communicate. Drop your friends a letter. Call them on the phone. Set up a coffee date if you can. Even now with
Mm-hmm.
technology and Zoom, you can, spend some time
Yeah.
speaking to family and friends. If
We
you
taught
can't
a lot.
or they live far away.
Yeah, we taught a lot of seniors about Zoom during COVID with our senior specialist group.
Yeah, we used to, a group of friends and I, we would do like a happy hour. So we'd all get on our Zoom or with our families
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
make it kind of fun. But it's also has a huge impact on our Medicare costs. I mean, the study that I had was back from 2020, but it said loneliness costs the U.S. economy an estimated $406 billion a year, in addition to the estimated $6.7 billion a year in Medicare costs for socially isolated older adults. So it's an epidemic. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, getting older is tough. It's like my mom, all of her friends are dying. And she's like, I'm, of course, the 90 pluses like her are in good health because they kept themselves going. And then the people that are younger than her who are becoming more feeble and unable to deal with the stuff that they do, they're getting isolated because they don't want to join any longer. They probably feel badly. I think that was what my dad did. He couldn't speak anymore the same way. He couldn't interact the way he wanted to. So he just didn't.
Yeah.
That's kind of what they do.
Well, the beauty also of, being in a home or being in a community where people are dementia certified, they know how to meet the resident or, the senior where they are. So if he's not able to speak, maybe there's other ways they can try to communicate with him or make him feel comfortable and part of, an activity or part of a conversation or, somehow, some way, make him feel like he's not alone.
Yeah. Yeah, he loved the nurse over there at the board and care. That was his favorite person. They got along really well, which was great. So that's important why you need to check the place out and see if there's good help that you like there also, because the help is the one caring for your family most of the time.
And for me, walking around and when I, tour a place or somewhere new, or even just when I revisit, it's really important to look at the interaction of the staff with the residents. Are they happy? Do they all seem engaged? It tells us, it's very telling what kind of care they're given and what kind of community you're in. And if it would be good for your loved one.
Yeah, totally. I agree. So we talked about the cost. We talked about the difficult nature of pushing someone into this new place, shall we say. But what is it like? Like when you place your family somewhere, what does that mean? Because we talk about placement like it's a placemat or something. What is that experience like?
So I do have to say Assisted Living Locators is a franchise. There's 150 of us across the country. We were started over 20 years ago by a nurse who realized in her own hospital how many people were getting kicked back to the hospital because they were going home and weren't getting the care that they needed. So we really have a very, based on her experience and her creating this company, we have a very personalized approach. We take a very thorough assessment of the loved one and make sure that we understand everything about them, making sure that we can find the best place for them. And then,
like, what kind of questions would you ask them?
What kind of person are they? Are they a social person? Do they like activities? If they do they have high care needs? Are they especially if they are starting to have dementia, obviously there's special places for them. Do they have any behavioral issues? Because believe it or not, some places do not take dementia patients that have sundowning or have behavioral issues because they just don't have the staff or the skill to take care of it. So I will make sure as soon as they tell me that there may be some behavior, I know directly where to go. And it's, places I can handle. And sometimes it's just getting the medication, obviously going through their medications, understanding, what challenges they have physically. Are they continent? Are they incontinent? Are they able to walk? So a lot of things go into that assessment. And then the time frame, where they want to go. And then I will take all that into consideration. And based on everything I know and all the communities and homes I've been to, I will narrow it down and make a suggested list of tours for us. I will then review it with the loved ones. They will tell me, yes, can we go to this one, this one, this one? I will set up the tours. I take them on the tours. I offer unbiased opinions and answer any questions. And sometimes it's a lot of hand-holding because it is emotional and there's guilt involved and there's the unknown and it's so overwhelming. But oftentimes after our first, time together, we start to build a relationship and I become friends with the families. I just heard from one of a very challenging case I had. The mom had dementia, was incontinent, in a wheelchair, and had a very low budget. And it was very challenging. And she was moving from a very crazy community up on the west side, and the daughter's like, I just want to move her one more time. I don't want it. So we really spent a lot of time, and I almost had to talk. I was like, I think we've exhausted everything. I've never had that say that. And I said, but I have one more place I want to go see with you. We both walked in. We were like, this is it. And then we walked out, hugged, cried, and we're like, this is it. Like a month later, they invited me to her 88th birthday party of her mom at the community at a birthday party, and she was thriving. And then I just got out of the blue an email from the daughter just saying, I just wanted to say thanks again. My mom's doing so great. I'm so glad we placed her at this house, and, thank you again. Thank you a zillion times, she said. So It's so fulfilling. It's so that's what I'm here for. And I love it, to being able to help families, take all the stress and that stuff away and just help them, navigate.
Is that what you like best about what you do?
Yeah, I love the connections I make with the family. I love helping people. I love the community. I love everybody we work with at SSG and this foundation. It's just such a collaborative group, and so refreshing to be in this environment. So yes, I do.
Do you have any tips now to give our listeners of going through this process in the easiest way possible?
I would say, by all means, again, there's no cost to using a referral agent. So please let me help you. I can save you a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of angst. And oftentimes there's places like they may not have availability. So before I take you, if you're in a crisis, I'm not going to take you somewhere that doesn't have an open room. So I will do all that research beforehand. So we're not looking at places that we can't get into right away, especially if that's what we need to do. Yeah. But if we are looking down the line, I always say, let's just go out and look and get an idea. And then if you like some place and it's in the next couple months, let's put your name on a wait list. And when you're ready, and sometimes the wait list, you can skip your, just if they're ready and you're not, they'll just skip you and keep you on the list. So there is a cost involved to go on some of these lists. So, but again, it holds your place. And there's 12,000 people a day turning 65 now. So the amount of communities and facilities and homes we need more.
Right. So. I know I did a program. My parents are getting older now. What do I do? Back in the dark ages, I don't remember how long ago it was now too. And there was nobody doing this at the time. And I had all my colleagues get together and we did a 4-step process and meetings and stuff. And it's changed so much now. There's so many more people like you working. So that's really good for those of us who aren't quite there yet, that might get old someday. But my tip is just to use the recommended businesses that we share with you, because it's so much easier. The process itself is hard enough as it is. You couldn't possibly do all the research that you need to do on your own. It's so much easier to work with someone like Jennifer and me to help you get to where you need to go, because it's a long process. It's a journey, and you have to go through it, because unless you don't care about your parents, or you have done, you go through it until you're at the end. It's just the way it is, aging. So it's a great experience to work with well-served businesses that know how to help people. And that's all of our group is like that. So I'm so glad that I have them as resources for my clients. I get more involved in my clients' lives than most attorneys, but that's because I know all the problems that occur and I don't want them to face any of those issues. So anyway, so that kind of wraps up our story. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. And maybe you could come back and talk about something else in the future.
I would love to. A topic that I think everybody should start talking about early is long-term care, because you can plan for the future and have options, more options than if you didn't.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Unfortunately,
that's a whole session all by itself.
That's another session. So.
Yeah, totally. But anyway, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I appreciate it. I hope you learned something that you can hold on to and use in the future. And the recording is going to be available, and you'll be able to see it on all the places where you can get podcasts out there. So we look forward to seeing you again at Coffee with Counsel. Thank you so much for attending.
Thank you.
You've been tuning in to the Coffee with Counsel podcast with your host, Grace St. Clair. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, qualityestatePlanning.com. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others.